Welcome to A Day in Her Life podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Rinnick, and I am endlessly curious about how other women get it all done. On today's episode, we catch up with Christina Tumminello about a day in her life. Christina is a management consultant and mom of two, soon to be three, with a Substack and Instagram highlighting her fashion finds on the side. Christina also happens to be one of my best friends, and we met when we moved to Madison, Wisconsin around the same time in 2010. In today's episode, we talk about how Christina loves to be an early riser, how she tries to block Monday mornings and Friday afternoons for buffer for the week, and how her routine will change when she welcomes baby number 3. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode, Christina. I hope you all love our conversation and look forward to seeing you next week. Welcome to A Day in Her Life podcast. Today we are joined by Christina Tumminello, consultant, influencer, and mom of 2 kiddos with a third en route. Christina and I have been friends since 2010 when we both moved to Madison, Wisconsin around the same time, so I'm thrilled to have her on the show with us today. Hi, Christina. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Good morning.
How's your morning going?
Pretty good. I'm pretty happy that it's Friday. It's been a long week.
Absolutely. Let's jump right in. So, setting the scene, can you fill us in on where you live, what you do, and describe your family for us?
Yes, of course. So I live in Massachusetts in the Metro West area, which is like suburban to Boston, in a town called Concord. I am a consultant, a management consultant. I work for a small healthcare-focused management consulting firm, and my work is mostly focused within our life sciences practice. I work with commercial teams with a focus on strategy and operations. So basically, I work with a whole array of clients on strategic planning, strategy development, organizational and operational efficiency, helping teams deliver on strategies that they develop and coaching them to operate as efficiently and effectively as possible, work better together, and overall have like a better experience of work at work. I tell clients that my work and the services that I provide are focused on like the art and science of high performing teams. On the side, I don't know if I would call myself an influencer. That's too generous.
I will. You influence my shopping.
Yeah, I love to shop. I love clothes and I love getting dressed. And I also love to write. So I write a newsletter, primarily a newsletter about shopping and getting dressed. And I have an Instagram account that kind of goes along with it where I share like what I'm wearing and things that are inspiring me on a daily and weekly basis. Okay, my family. So I'm married. My husband's name is Vinny, and he also works. Together, like you said, we have 2 kids. My son, Ellis, is 4. My daughter, Addie, is 2. And we are imminently expecting a third baby, which will be here in like 2 months, maybe a little less than that.
Can't wait. All right. So why don't you take us through a day in your life? You can be as specific as possible and see where it goes.
Okay, awesome. So I was thinking about this. I'm going to describe like a generic day, but I feel like during the week, at least Monday through Fridays, my days are pretty consistent. And then the weekends kind of depends on what we've got going on. But so in the morning, I like to wake up as early as I can. I mentioned that right now I'm very pregnant, and with that has become a lot of fatigue. So I'm tired. And so it's not as early as I would like to be. Like ideally I would have like basically a full hour plus to myself before I have to interact with my children. But right now I try and get out of bed by 6:30, and I'm mostly successful, especially because now that it's light out at 6:30, that really helps. Like when my alarm goes off and it's light out, I can summon myself from my nest of a bed. Whereas like even as soon as like 2 weeks ago, I was basically just like snoozing or just like waking up like 10 minutes before my kids would like be like, we're awake. So yeah, in the morning I do whatever I want or whatever I need to do before my kids wake up. So sometimes I read. I often am like, sometimes I'll listen to an audiobook. Sometimes that's when I'm catching up on work. that's when I'm writing. Sometimes I'm like browsing online, shopping, like creating content either for the newsletter or for my Instagram account. And once my kids wake up, which is usually like between 7:15 and no later than 7:20, my son has one of those like wake up lights. So basically at 7:20, it turns green and he is alerting us that he is ready to emerge from his room. Once they're awake, we start like the real morning routine. So eating breakfast, getting my oldest son, he goes to preschool in the morning. So making his snack, making sure he's got his water bottle, like whatever he might need for school that day in his backpack, brushing teeth. We're currently, the bathroom that my kids usually use is under construction right now. So I feel like this can be a chaotic moment in the morning because we can't just like usher them straight into their bathroom to like go to the bathroom and brush their teeth. They have to like go upstairs or go downstairs, and like, you know, sometimes they want to like brush their teeth in my bathroom, and sometimes they want to brush their teeth in the powder room on our first floor. So that can be like a negotiation that is like, it's new since we're under construction. So I look forward to not having to deal with that anymore and just like being able to like shepherd everyone in that way. And yeah, so our nanny comes at 8. And so she takes over and she helps finish up getting ready. So the morning routine with my kids, it feels chaotic because we have a lot to do in a short period of time. I think just like their ages, like 4 and 2, like sometimes it's amazing. And sometimes like they're offering up resistance and concerns about doing very normal things every step of the way. But our nanny comes at 8. So I actually don't do a lot of the like truly hard things, like getting them their clothes and getting them dressed and getting them out the door. So she gets them dressed. She brushes my son's hair, which is like, you know, a thing. And she takes him to preschool and takes my daughter to do whatever they have planned for the day. My workday pretty much starts as soon as I can sneak up to my office. And I'm usually like on for work from 8:30-ish until 4:30. So, and that really varies on the day. I do my very best to not have meetings after 4:30. That's not always possible. I try really hard to not have meetings before 9. However, that's definitely not always possible. So some days, you know, my meetings start as soon as like 8:10. But most of the time, I have a little bit of time to myself to do whatever I need to do, which is usually like put on a shirt so that I can be on camera and make sure that I can basically be on camera. Like I'm not doing like a full getting ready exercise, but I'm doing more than I did at 6:30 when I woke up.
Yeah.
And so then my day is usually like meetings, working on stuff for my clients, working on BD work. I do a lot of business development work and like working on like strategic projects within the company, blah, blah, blah. Boring stuff. It's not boring. It's extremely meaningful work. However, maybe not what the audience wants to hear about. So I try and eat something mid-morning. Before we started recording, I was telling Ellie, like, this has been a journey of a pregnancy in terms of my relationship with food. I have been extremely sick. I think I just went through the first continuous 7-day period where I have not thrown up once. And I'm 33 weeks pregnant. So it's been rough. So food is like tough and I have to be careful, but I try and eat something in the morning. And then I have to basically eat lunch or like my midday meal, whatever we're calling it, before noon because my kids come home and they eat lunch at home and then they both either take a nap or rest. So I try to sort of be out of the first floor of our house, out of the kitchen space before they get home because I just like don't like to interrupt their day. Whenever I can, I fit in a workout. I think like working from home, one of the nicest things is the fact that I don't have to like wake up at 5:30 in the morning to work out every day or even like on some sort of regular pattern. So I work out whenever I can, like literally every like Monday morning, I'm like looking at my calendar. Where do I have an hour and a half? And like slotting that in a couple times. I literally work out like right behind where my desk is. And I also have a walking desk set up. So I'm obsessed with that. I feel like moving my body every day is super important to me. I normally run, which I have not basically run since I've been pregnant because I felt so sick, and now because it doesn't feel good. So I miss that. So I try and either at a minimum walk on my treadmill for, I mean, even if I can only fit in 30 minutes, but usually there's a meeting I can take where I can like be walking while I'm taking it, or like emails, blah, 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 whatever. So that's a big part of my day. And then at the end of the day, my husband and I take turns getting the kids. So our nanny typically leaves by 4:30. So on days when it's my day, I'm like kind of wrapping up work from 4 to 4:30, or pausing, I guess maybe I should say, work from 4 to 4:30. And we get out of the house. Now that the weather's better, we're like either playing in the yard, or like we have like a little loop next to our neighborhood where we try and like go for a walk just to get some outside time. I find that like lead up to dinner is best for everyone when there's some time out of the house.
Yeah, we're the exact same way.
Yeah. And so whomever doesn't have the kids is making dinner. So by the time we come home, we're eating dinner usually between 5:30 and 6. And then we hang out from like 6 to 6:30 as a family. My son he's been really into having circle time all together, which is like something he does at school. So he will like read us a story. If you're not on video, I used quotation marks. He's not reading, but he has memorized several books, or sometimes he'll just like tell us a story and teach us a song. It's like very official. You're not allowed to talk unless you raise your hand. And even if you raise your hand, you can only talk when he decides he wants to call on you. So that is often how I'm spending the last part of my day. And then we start getting ready for bed at like around 6:30. My kids go to sleep like at 7-ish, and it usually honestly takes like 30 minutes to like make that whole situation happen. And once they're asleep and sort of like down for the night, I usually work again. I usually have like something that I need to do. I try not to do that after 8:00. So usually it's no more than like 7 to 8 that I'm working. Sometimes I watch a show with my husband, and then, I mean, I'm in bed by like 9:30 at the latest. And I read before I go to sleep. And depending on how I'm feeling, sometimes I read for an hour. Sometimes I read 3 pages. But yeah, and then, rinse and repeat the next morning.
You said you get into bed at 9. Is reading mostly what you do when you get into bed?
Yeah. That's pretty much
What are you reading right now?
I'm reading The Lincoln Highway.
Oh, yeah. I read that this year. I did an audiobook because it's a long book. I didn't realize how big it was.
It's huge. I went into my office yesterday, and so I was like packing my bag, and I'm like, man, I should have really like thought through picking a book that is not like 2/3 of my bag. I ended up like not taking it with me because it's enormous. But I'm trying. I have like a huge stack of like books next to my bed that is like, my literal to be read pile. And I sort of made a loose resolution with myself at the beginning of this year that I'm going to actually try and like make my way through that pile of books before I buy too many more. I say loose because I'm actually planning on going to our bookstore this afternoon to get something new.
What book? Do you know which book?
Yeah, Tiny Beautiful Things.
I haven't heard of that one. Look that up.
It is by the woman who wrote Wild, I think. I can't think of her name. I wish I could. It's about to be a show on Hulu.
Yes. Yes.
And
I saw that.
Yeah. So I have like a book club. I use that term like extremely loosely because we actually like rarely talk about the book, but we go out to dinner on the second Thursday of every month, and that's the book that we selected for this month. And I haven't read the book in a while, but I decided I would try and get that and try and fit that in. We'll see.
Book club books feel like a good exception to the rule.
Yeah. Usually I use like Libby, like the app for my for my Kindle, or I use it for audiobooks. And so I'm like on the wait list for both. And I was like checking last week and it's like you're like 3 months on the wait list, like for whether I wanted to read it or listen to it. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go buy it. So I feel like in my head, I've made up a rule that rationalizes, but basically I'm just like trying to get through this like gigantic pile of books or like decide I'm not going to read them. If I'm not going to read them, that's fine. But
bring them to the little free library.
Exactly.
Let someone else enjoy them.
Exactly.
If your ideal day, what would that look like in comparison to your usual day?
I think like my biggest like in my ideal day, I would have, I think I said like a full hour to myself. And when I say hour, I actually probably mean like hour and a half, because I mean like waking up, I want to have enough time to like wake up and not feel like I have to like bolt out of bed. So like really I probably need 20 minutes like in my bedroom to like wake up, like get dressed, brush my teeth, whatever, and then get myself downstairs. And then I want like a full 60 minutes to myself. Pour myself a cup of coffee, a full 60 minutes to myself would be amazing. The other version of the ideal day, which actually does happen, is like my husband gets up and gets the kids and I can just like stay by myself in our bedroom. That doesn't usually happen during the week because I, like actually have to like start my day. But on the weekends, that's usually what we do. Right now, I'm getting the gift of lots of extra time resting. Although usually we do try and take turns so that we each get a little bit of that. Yeah, I think that's it. And then, if I had like, if I'm truly like, how ideal can I get? Like I would honestly like go for a walk for for half of that hour that I have to myself. Just like get outside, move. Literally could be as simple as like walking around the block or whatever. I'm not doing that very much in the morning and I wish I did.
Yeah. It's so nice to get outside first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Sometimes I use Baker as that excuse if Tim's home.
Totally. Yeah. I think like having a dog, it's a great part of having a dog. And, we don't have a dog, so I got to do it myself.
How do you structure your work day with meetings? Do you have any flexibility on how you like structure your day in terms of focus time, meeting time? You mentioned you make time for working out.
Yeah, I mean, I do my best to organize that. I would say like I have a lot of autonomy over my schedule, but I'm also in professional services. So, I have to be flexible with what my clients need and are looking for. And it honestly changes a lot because sometimes I'm working on projects that are like really long. Sometimes I'm working on projects that are shorter. So I have to be pretty flexible. A few things I do, like probably for like 3 years now, I've had a block on my calendar every Monday from like 8 to 10:30. That's just like get myself ready for the week. So on Mondays, I try not to have any meetings before 10:30. And then if I like, that becomes sort of my like, if I need to fit something in, I have a way to fit something in that is not before 8 or after 5. So that's what I try and do. I'm definitely like more of a morning person. Even when I'm not pregnant, I'm tired, like, and kind of like winding down in terms of like my brain by like 3 or 3:30. That's like a very like sleepy time of the afternoon for me. So I try to do like to fit in like the work, the thinking stuff that I have to do. If I'm working on like a major deliverable for a client, I try and do that stuff in the morning. And then I try and do my big meetings in the middle of the day and like my like listening meetings or maybe like a one-on-one with a team member where I could like walk and talk. I try and do those like in the afternoon. Those are my like biggest things. And then like I try and like block off Friday afternoons too. So that can I swear?
Yeah,
okay.
I'll bleep it.
Okay.
I don't want to be explicit.
The fan during the week, then I have Friday afternoon to get myself caught up and like my Monday self will thank me for that. But also that just means that like I can have a little time to like get literally like make sure I've read all my emails, make sure I've like responded to personal emails that I like might need to have responded to, like go to the grocery store or like whatever, like do some of those life things that can be just really hard to fit in on a regular basis during the week. So that's like my other big thing. And I find that most of my coworkers don't want to work. No one wants to really like meet after like 1:00 on a Friday anyways.
It should be outlawed. I firmly believe. I have a recurring client meeting from 2 to 3 on Fridays, and it's the worst time.
Yeah. I mean, that's really bad. I will say like he works with like a couple clients that are like more on West Coast time. So he will like regularly have like a 4 to 5 on Friday. And I am just, it's not his fault. It's not his fault. However, I'm like, you guys just need to say, hey, can we not have a recurring meeting from 4 to 5 on Fridays? Like, it's one thing, like, you need to, sure, of course, like, stuff like that always comes up. You know, I think it's, like, okay to say, like, hey, is there any way we could find a better time for this? Or, you know, I always, like, kind of ask myself, if a client is asking me for something at a time that, like, is really bad for me, like, I kind of go through, like, a list of questions in my head. I'm like, okay, do we actually... like, does this actually have to happen right now? Because, you know, we have to have something figured out by the next day or by Monday or blah, 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 blah. But the reality is that, like, when you have these meetings on Friday afternoons, no one's doing anything with any of the meeting outcomes until Monday.
Yeah.
Or
they forget that it happened.
Totally. Exactly. Or they're forced to work over the weekend. So I kind of use the litmus test. Like, is this important enough for someone to work on it over the weekend? In which case, okay, like, let's make sure that we, you know, can actually, like, not have a spark turn into a fire. But if it's not, and it rarely is, then can we just do this on, like, Monday? Or can we do it over email?
Which you probably can, too.
Yeah, I mean, like, I could do most things over email, but whatever. Such is life.
Do you go into the office often, or does Vinny go into the office often?
Yeah, he goes in pretty rarely. I am trying to go in once a week. Mm-hmm. 1 day a week, I go into the city.
In a general day or week, how do you make time for your relationship during the week?
I would say during the week, it is business. We are very focused on the business that is being parents to 2 small kids and both having like full-time jobs. We do try and like watch a show or like do something together a couple nights a week. But the most time that we have for each other is like on the weekends. I would say like right now, something that works for us is having help with our kids during the day on a Saturday or a Sunday. And then we can usually have some time together to like, we usually try and like couple it up with like, let's get something done and let's go out to lunch together or go out to breakfast or whatever. That's just sort of like where we are in life right now.
And I think a lot of people with young kids feel very similarly. I like how you put it. It's business during the week. It's transactional.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we do both work from home. So we do, I feel like, have quality time as, you know, as a family, all 4 of us on a regular basis. It just so happens that like a lot of time that quality time is like 25 minutes. You know, it's not hours and hours. But I think like anyone with with little kids knows that like, you know, sometimes it is like you're taking it 5-minute increments at a time, and like kids can do things in shorter increments of time than adults do. It's like normal. Or I'm telling myself it's normal for us to have like small windows of time that you just have to remember that like that's actually like that was great. Being able to do something as a family for 25 or 30 minutes is a win.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you see your routine changing with a third baby coming?
I'm trying not to think about that, actually. I'm not sure how healthy that is. I mean, it's going to change. But I also, you know, it's not my first time having a baby. So I know that like I basically have like no expectations for the first like 3 months or so. I know it will be chaotic. I know we will probably not have a routine. And anytime you do start to have one, it's going to change. I'm really lucky. I have a lot of maternity leave. So I'll probably be home for like 6 months is my plan. And Vinny has 2 months, so he'll take like a month up front, and then we're traveling some this summer. So he'll use some of that time for us to be able to go on some of the trips that we have planned later in the summertime. So I know that the routine will be different. I do think that when I've talked to parents who have more than 2 children, And I think even to like a certain degree, when you have a second, you realize the baby is going to have to be a little bit more flexible than that first baby was, you know?
Yeah.
But I think the third is going to have to be even more flexible, you know, where
they'll be outvoted in every scenario.
Exactly. So, you know, I think it's probably not going to have like the perfect wake windows and the perfect nap times and whatever, all of those things. And that's okay. They're probably going to be better for it. This baby's going to be so loved. We don't know if it's a boy or a girl. So it has two siblings who are literally could not be more obsessed with this baby. Every morning they want to like feel the baby kick. They want to talk about what's the baby look like? What's it going to be like when the baby comes? I mean, I'm not worried.
Have they picked out names for the baby?
No, although they haven't. At one point there was like a combination of vowels that they were using to refer to the baby. I can't even like repeat it. I'm not sure. I can't even really remember what it was. It wasn't a name. They do think that it's a boy. So if it's not, that will be a big surprise. But, you know, we'll figure it out.
Maybe we can reprise the schedule once the baby comes.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I think it's going to be chaotic. I know it's going to be chaotic, but that's what it takes to add a baby. If it's your first or second, it doesn't matter. There's always a level of chaos that comes with having a newborn in your home.
I've been thinking a lot about how parenting is similar to project management and business things, and it makes me think of that like storming.
Oh yeah, we're gonna be storming.
Thing. Like there's
yeah.
Forming, storming, norming,
yeah.
performing. Yeah, it's gonna be a storm, but then you'll get into that performing section eventually. I'm literally listening to a leadership conference the other week, and I was like, this reminds me so much of the parenting thing I was listening to
hilarious.
The other week.
Yeah, I can totally see that. There's lots of parallels.
Trying to get people to go along with you, influencing without
authority. Except like you have authority, it's just that your kids don't give a crap about your authority.
Exactly. So, Christina, can you tell people where they can learn more about you and where they can follow you?
Yes. Okay. So you can find my Substack at christinatumminello.substack.com. Gosh, I hope that's right. And
if it's not, it'll be updated in the show notes.
Okay, good. And then my Instagram account is CT_, gosh, this is actually so embarrassing.
Shop guide. It's CT
Thank you. Sorry. It's just, you know, my brain sometimes. So yeah, CT_shop guide on Instagram. Yeah, I would love for anyone who's interested in reading or shopping or having my take on how to like get dressed and feel good to follow along.
I love that you always get dressed. That is one thing that I need to work on doing more in my life. I put on jeans 3 times this week, and I've considered that.
That's a huge victory. I haven't worn jeans in months. But yeah, I think like for me, getting dressed and like feeling like put together, even if it's literally like tinted moisturizer, like SPF, and like something that's not like what I slept with or like very grubby sweats, it's so connected to like how I feel, the tone I set for my day. So it's honestly like something that like makes me feel better, which is why I like care about it. And like I just love clothes. I love getting dressed. I love like getting dressed up, like all of those things. So yeah.
Awesome. And then what is your favorite part of the day in your life?
Let's see. I would say right now that one of the best parts of my day is like when I'm wrapped up and I come downstairs. My office is in my bedroom, which is on the 3rd floor of my house. So when I'm getting the kids first, or honestly, even when my husband has had the kids, when I walk downstairs and they see me, I am the queen of the world. My daughter has like, when she sees me during the day, she'll go, "Mommy, all done working?" And like has like the biggest smile on her face, and it's so cute. And my son will, you know, come running and give me a big hug, and it's just like, I love that part of the day. No matter what happens is going to happen in the next, you know, whatever period of time, I get that moment of just like proof of their love. It's amazing, and I love them so much. So
I love that. And then lastly, do most of your days feel routine or do they feel like chaos?
I think that I am in this fleeting moment where I have like a preschooler and a toddler. So I actually feel like we have like a good routine. Not to say that there is like chaos in every day. I think I said this before, but it's like, you never know when your kid is going to be like, what do you mean I have to brush my teeth? This is absolute crap. And you're like, we literally brush our teeth every day. Like we've been doing this for years. Like, but you just never know when that's going to happen. And you just have to kind of like roll with it and like be cool with that. So there's often lots of chaos. But yeah, I think overall, I'm probably leaning more towards the routine side of the spectrum. And I know that we have chaos coming. So
that makes sense.
The calm before the storm.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Christina, so much for joining us today. And all the information will be in the show notes. And thanks for joining us on a day in her life.
Thank you, Ellie. This was so fun.